Put a diamond number 16, Mr. Donaghy.
Go on, laugh. Get your money's worth. Nobody's going to hurt you.
You know, there's still something not quite right about that line.
Call me a lady once more and I'll fill you full of lead.
Maureen O'Hara, at the end of her life, revealed a list of the 5 most powerful and terrifying people in Hollywood, names that once made the entire showbiz world shudder. Hollywood, the promised land of dreams of becoming a star, is also a dark maze where powerful people control the fate of countless people. During her decades-long career, Maureen O'Hara, the actress with fiery red hair and determined eyes, not only witnessed the golden age of American cinema, but also directly experienced the most brutal dark sides of the entertainment industry. Let's delve into the story, exploring the darkest, most secret relationships in the entertainment industry. At the height of her fame, O'Hara kept a low profile. But toward the end of her life, she revealed a shocking truth with a list of 5 people she called the scariest I've ever known. They were the people who could turn an unknown talent into a star overnight and also ruin someone's life with a frown. They weren't just famous directors or wealthy producers. They were the people who controlled the scenes where power and desire intersected. In O'Hara's gritty account, each of them emerged with a ruthlessness, arrogance, and secrets that terrified Hollywood. And now, for the first time, Maureen O'Hara opens up about her past, revealing the names of 5 people who kept her up at night for years, along with the terrible scandal that nearly destroyed her. If there was one person who had the most profound influence on Maureen O'Hara's career, it was John Ford, the director with the unique style and 4 Oscars. But in her painful memoir, O'Hara calls her relationship with Ford complicated, emotional, and sometimes dark. It was Ford who discovered O'Hara and gave her the roles of her life in classics like How Green Was My Valley, The Quiet Man, and Rio Grande. On screen, he praised her talent and her sharp beauty. But behind the camera, he was a different person. Ford was a contradiction. According to O'Hara, he both cherished her like a precious gem and burned her with uncontrollable anger. On set, he could explode at the slightest glance, a misspoken line, or a slight change in mood. O'Hara once said Ford would yell at her in front of the entire crew for criticizing a scene. "He couldn't stand that I was smarter than him," she said. Another time, he made her rehearse a scene to exhaustion to teach her to submit. Strangely, despite this treatment, O'Hara never turned her back on Ford. She admitted that there was something deep, unnameable between them, a strange, almost sickening bond. Behind-the-scenes gossip suggested that John Ford was in love with Maureen O'Hara, but it was a love warped by power and self-doubt. "He didn't know what love was," O'Hara said, "he just knew how to possess." Ford once proposed to her in a drunken rage, and when she refused, his infatuation turned to hatred. He became colder, more distant, and more cruel in their subsequent collaborations. For O'Hara, John Ford was not just the man who made her a star, he was the man who made her feel smaller and more controlled than anyone else. The second person on the list of power was Louis B. Mayer, the MGM tycoon, whom all of Hollywood feared. Not only was Mayer the CEO of the world's largest film studio at the time, he was also the living symbol of absolute control. For Maureen O'Hara, Mayer was not just a movie mogul, he was the embodiment of her silent fear that would last throughout her career. It was Louis B. Mayer who personally invited Maureen O'Hara to sign a contract with MGM, an opportunity that any actress at that time considered a golden dream. He used sweet words, promising to make her an A-list star with a high salary, leading roles in blockbusters, and strong support from the entire media system. But O'Hara, with the intuition and pride of a woman who knew her own worth, refused. And that is when the nightmare began. Soon after saying no to Mayer, strange things began to happen. Important roles that had been offered to O'Hara were quietly passed on to others. One time she arrived on set to be told that the part had gone to someone else, no explanation, no warning. There were sudden cancellations, and producers avoided her as if carrying an invisible message. Everyone whispered in my ear, "No one says no to Mayor without paying the price," O'Hara later recalled. Louis B. Mayer's reputation in the industry was an open secret. He used his absolute power at MGM not only to run the studio but also to control the personal lives of his actresses. They were forced to conform to the studio's image, live by a strict code of ethics, and sometimes, it was rumored, meet the private demands of the studio's bigwigs. Anyone who resists will be eliminated quickly, without any regrets. O'Hara refused to be a pawn in that power game, but she also knew that her choice came at a cost. Despite her reputation and charisma, she was severely hampered for many years at MGM. More than once, she was forced to accept small roles in independent films, only for the big doors to close, where Mayer still wielded a godlike influence. The third person was Howard Hughes, the eccentric billionaire film producer and one of the most eccentric figures in American entertainment history. With his enormous fortune, Hughes owned not only companies, but also actresses he considered assets, including Maureen O'Hara. From the first time they met, Hughes was fascinated by O'Hara's beauty and charisma. He sent her lavish gifts, long handwritten letters, and irresistible offers, big roles, big contracts, if she would enter his world. But O'Hara, despite being a top star, refused. She understood that Hughes was not looking for a colleague, but a possession. Immediately after the refusal, trouble arose. O'Hara's film projects were abruptly changed, roles disappeared without explanation. When she sought an explanation, people in the industry quietly turned away. She quickly understood that it was not easy to refuse someone like Hughes. Contracts were canceled, producers began to refuse to cooperate, doors gradually closed. Rumors spread that Hughes relied on more hidden forces than just money. Howard Hughes used more than money and power to get the women he wanted. Those who dared to refuse him paid a heavy price: stalking, threats, and silent control. Anonymous phone calls, strange stalkers, and forced meetings all were part of the hidden system of manipulation that Hughes used to deal with those who dared to say no. Maureen O'Hara, despite her reputation as a strong and independent woman, could not escape the watchful eyes of this eccentric billionaire. With all his money, power, and fame, Howard Hughes was more than just a beauty addict. He was a true predator, always looking to control others and never letting anyone go without paying the price. And the price O'Hara had to pay was a career full of ups and downs, unexpected turns that she did not foresee. Jack L. Warner, perhaps the name that most terrified Maureen O'Hara, was the embodiment of absolute power and ruthless manipulation. As the founder and head of Warner Brothers, he built a storied movie empire. But the price of that success was not always fair, especially for actresses like Maureen O'Hara. Her relationship with Warner was more than a cold business deal. It was a brutal battle between a star and a tycoon who could control an entire industry. From the moment she signed her first contract, Warner transformed O'Hara from a potential star into a fixed asset. But she soon realized that the contract was not a promise of creative freedom, but a trap that Warner could tighten at any time. With a fierce nature, Warner did not hesitate to turn O'Hara into a commodity between studios. She was forced to do films she did not want, just to serve business deals and maintain absolute control. O'Hara felt trapped in a glass cage, where every decision was governed by Warner's interests. But the worst was yet to come. When she asked to change an unsuitable role, Warner did not hesitate to use the contract clause to threaten, "You have the right to leave Warner Brothers. But if you do, you will never work in Hollywood again," he said with an icy gaze. It was a trap that O'Hara could not avoid. But Maureen O'Hara was not one to be cowed. After months of torment, she decided to take the risk of confronting Warner and exposing the truth. She used the power of the public, through the press, live interviews, to expose the manipulations Warner had used on her and other actresses. O'Hara not only won the case, she also regained control of her career. Jack L. Warner, the most powerful mogul in Hollywood, eventually backed down. But the price O'Hara paid was not small. Her reputation was damaged, her career was interrupted for a long time, and her relationships in the industry became more complicated than ever. But she never regretted it. She understood that in Hollywood, there were battles that were inevitable, and that if she did not fight, she would never have freedom and independence in her art. Jack L. Warner may be the master of an empire, but it is O'Hara who finally regains his voice and dignity in a world of intrigue. From intercepted letters to controlled interviews, Maureen O'Hara was eventually invited to a secret meeting with one of the most powerful moguls in Hollywood at the time, a man who never appeared in public but controlled the fates of dozens of stars. His reputation was tied to his anonymous power, his ability to manipulate the media, and his ability to destroy the careers of anyone who dared to confront him. The meeting took place in a luxurious but cold office on the top floor of a major studio. Maureen recalls that his gaze was not threatening, but rather the kind of coldness that made her feel controlled from the very beginning. After a few pleasantries, the real issue arose. The mogul offered her a big role in a big-budget film. In exchange for silent cooperation according to unspoken rules that everyone in the industry knew but no one dared to speak out. For many, this could have been a life-changing opportunity. But for Maureen O'Hara, it was an unacceptable insult. She stood up, looked him straight in the eye and said, "I am an actress, not a commodity in the hands of those in power." From that moment on, everything changed. Her career began to be silently suffocated. The offers to cooperate gradually disappeared. The big roles were transferred to others. The press began to publish fabricated stories about her attitude, personal life, and even bad habits that were not true. A media storm began to swallow Maureen O'Hara. From a sought-after female star, she became the center of malicious rumors. Worse, no one spoke up to defend her. They knew that if they did, they would be the next to be knocked down. A series of sensational headlines appeared: Maureen O'Hara, hot queen or difficult diva, last-minute contract cancellation. Was it because of a love scandal? Irish beauty lost control behind the scenes. Many articles even deliberately distorted her words, labeling her with toxic words, arrogant, uncooperative, even showing signs of mental instability. Some newspapers even fabricated stories about her flings with directors or co-stars in an attempt to paint her as a flirtatious and unstable woman. It was all the product of a well-planned smear campaign, and Maureen knew it. Sadly, no one in the industry dared to defend her. Roles were canceled without explanation. Studios used script changes as an excuse to remove her from the lineup. Interview requests disappeared. Maureen O'Hara, who had once been on par with the biggest names, suddenly became a name to avoid in Hollywood. But while everyone was still caught up in the unfounded rumors, Hollywood was rocked by a real media bomb, a leaked photo, allegedly showing Maureen O'Hara in a sensitive situation on a film set. No one knew where the photo came from. It was not published by any major newspaper but appeared first in a tabloid magazine, but within hours, it went viral. The image of an actress who was associated with toughness and standards was suddenly the object of suspicion and scorn in the photo. A woman believed to be Maureen is sitting, leaning back in the director's chair, her clothes disheveled, her eyes vague. The background is blurred but the camera angle is deliberately offensive. Immediately, the media added fuel to the fire. Maureen O'Hara caught in a state of instability, the behind-the-scenes truth of a famous star. But the public had no idea, and it was only later revealed that the photo had been staged or edited. Many photography experts at the time, in declassified post-production documents, pointed out the anomalies. The lighting was wrong for the time of filming, the shadows did not match, and especially, the face was blurred as if it had been composited from several different photos. A former lighting director who worked with O'Hara revealed in a 1987 interview, "I knew she wasn't there that day. The crew was shooting outdoors 60 miles away." Although the truth was eventually revealed, the price Maureen paid was extremely high. While everyone seemed to turn their backs on her, the media, her colleagues, the studios that had supported her, Maureen O'Hara did the unexpected. She did not stay silent.